Passion Fruit Podcast, the podcast where you'll be inspired, educated, and also hopefully find your own passion. Now, in last week's episode, we talked about, Emirates Airline and how I just went straight into talking about the different experiences and what it's like and why you should also fly with Emirates. Probably going to do a part 2 to that. But what I realized is before even recording a part 2, I was like, hold up a second. For your first episode, you talked about your own passion. Yeah, Shmail, we get that you're really passionate, but you're looking at something, you're not looking at the bigger picture. Why are you even doing this podcast? And then I was like, I'm doing this podcast because I'm so passionate about the phrase passion. Like, not even just the phrase, like grammatically, I'm talking about the whole idea of passion and what it can do to you. Like, take my word seriously that when you understand what passion is and what it can do to an individual and how it can change an individual's life once they bring in passion into their life, completely changed. So you're here right now because you're taking me seriously. If you're not going to take me seriously, please leave. Because what I'm about to say will end up potentially changing your life, will impact your life in somewhat way or another. I can almost guarantee. And I guarantee because it's changed my life. If it's changed my life, it will probably change yours as well. So let's talk about passion, right? And I think it's really important to actually define what passion is and how to differentiate it between, being passionate about something and being interested in something. Two different things, because you can be really interested in, photography. But are you passionate about it? You might be, you might not be. How do you know? So let's look at the idea of passion, what passion actually is. So it is simply a very big, hyper interest in something, almost like an overwhelming amount of interest in a certain subject or in a field. It's something, it's a feeling, it's an emotion that you are unable to contain. As a result, you will end up being more expressive about that certain thing. You will end up, explaining that certain topic in such a way that it makes it so engaging, so interesting. And that's all because you are passionate. You love it. Your heart's with that topic, with that subject that you're looking into. So when I talk about Emirates, hopefully I'm passionate enough to even have convinced you, regardless of whether it was like at 2:00 in the morning recording that podcast, whatever time, I was passionate about it. Still am, still will be, probably forever will be, because obviously there's emotions attached to it. But the point to make is, passion is an overwhelming feeling that you have for something. It's almost like love, right? But a romantic love for things in this world. For example, photography, nature, woods, trees. And one thing I've learned is the more niche your passion is, the more exciting it almost gets. Because, if you talk about, I'm so passionate about technology, great, you're passionate about it, but it's so huge and there are so many different topics within, technology that you can end up liking as a result, and so on and so forth. But the point to make is, passion is an overwhelming, uncontrollable feeling, love that you have for a certain thing. Now, the question to then propose is, then what is an interest? An interest is probably more a toned down version of passion. So with passion, let's say with Emirates, let's use Emirates as an example. Emirates Airline, I love it. I can talk about it forever. That's the difference. I can talk about it forever. I can lose track of time. Whereas if I'm interested in something, I probably may get bored of it, after a certain while or so. And with interest, you like it, but you don't like it enough to invest time into it, to, lose track of time, to have, you don't develop this uncontrollable feeling or urge about it. Yeah, there may be that urge to discover more, but if you were sat in a room of people just talking about this thing, it may or may not, touch your heart. So with regards to passion and interest, that's the difference. And when I ask people, hey, so what are you passionate about? They just look blankly at me, and I'm like, no, you do have something passionate in your life. It's no doubt, like, everyone has a passion in their life. They just don't know it's a passion, and that's the issue. Oh, well, that's what I think is the issue. The fact that people have so many experiences in their life and to not have a passion. Come on, you're human. You must love something in this world. And I guess every happy person has a passion. That's one thing for sure. I really do think so. But hopefully you've now understood the idea and the differences between a passion and an interest. Now, the second point to make is how, with regards to a passion, it's really genuine. It comes from within. It's not influenced by anyone. Because this is one thing I found, right? So, not going to reveal names, but I had a friend, and still my friend today, and he, I asked him, what's your passion? And he goes, photography. I was like, okay, cool. I love photography too. The following week, I asked him again. I was like, so what's your passion? He probably forgot I even asked that. And he started talking about, Forex trading, and, he loves, blogging and, writing articles. I was like, hold up a second. Last week you were telling me photography. I could be wrong in saying that he has multiple passions. But turns out he was simply influenced by his other friend, who also is shifting, different, interests and stuff. And at that moment, I was like, those aren't passions. You're simply influenced by an individual who is interested in something, and you will definitely look up to that individual, admire that individual, hence you end up following what he does. Not to say that's a bad thing. That's pretty human, but you don't, that none of those are passions. Obviously, I kind of almost crushed his soul in that moment, but he understood that those weren't passions. It wasn't coming from within, because if I suddenly kidnapped his friend, obviously not kidnapped, but if I was to take away his friend from him, would his interest still be there? It wouldn't be. Why? Because a passion is from within. But an interest can almost be within your surrounding. Now, if you have that motivation, that passion for something developed from within, no matter what happens to this world, that interest, that passion that you have, I say interest, I mean passion, that love you have for that thing will forever remain, right? Because there's that emotional attachment to it. You've got your own experiences with it. So that's the really important thing to understand, the difference between the two, and recognizing which individuals are interested, which individuals are passionate. And once you recognize the individuals who are passionate about a subject or a certain thing, do not leave their side. The reason why I say that is they can end up influencing you and opening a door to you which you never even thought would be opened. Let's say, for example, I'm best friends with someone who's so passionate about penmanship and handwriting. Just because I may find it boring, doesn't mean, I shouldn't look into it. Like, if they're really passionate about it, I will keep that person by my side. And hopefully one day he will open, or she will open, that door for me to this world of penmanship and what it's like. And funnily enough, I'm already interested in penmanship, not because of anyone, but because of my own past experiences, which I will talk about in another episode. So that's the first thing you got to understand, the difference between the two. Hopefully that's engraved in your head, right? Second thing is, let's talk about, so we've talked about, sorry, I'm just trying to, this podcast thing as well, like, is kind of a little bit hard trying to constantly think of something to say when it's meant to just come naturally. That's the one. Sorry. I'm going to keep that in, because just to show you how I'm trying to actually genuinely think really hard. Now, where does passion come from? That's another thing. Where does passion come from? Do you know? Let me tell you this. It's a basic formula. The more experiences you have, the more interests you develop. The more interests you develop, the more passions you develop. Because passion derives from interest. So, imagine like a seed, right? You plant that seed. That seed is interest. You only planted it because you're interested in it, right? And you pat it down, you water it, and all that sort of stuff. Over a period of time, if the seed grows, great, because that seed will then grow into a beautiful flower, and that is your passion. Interest turns into passion. Know that. Get that right, okay? But then where does interest come from? I can't be sat in a cube boxed room, no doors, no walls, well, obviously there's walls, but no windows, and expect interest to suddenly derive out of nowhere. I've got to experience life. I've got to go out there. I've got to speak to people. I've got to see people. I've got to get involved. Don't say no to experiences that come your way, because what will happen is you will get an experience, and as a result, you might get 5 interests out of that single experience. Let me give an example. Let's say I get offered to go on a boat to go fishing. Oh, fishing. Go. Because you never know. 1, I might end up taking interest into, marine biology. 2, I might end up being interested in genuinely the art of fishing. I say art. I think it's an art. I think so. C, I might end up being interested in boats and ships and those sort of vehicles. D, I might be interested in, I don't know, the lifestyle of a captain at sea. Those sort of things. And as a result, that's like 4 different types of interests. Those 4 interests, any one of them, for as long as I've planted it within the soil and I look into it further, any one of them can turn into a passion. Once it turns into a passion, I have then instilled that love within, and it will never die. What I like to call the garden of passion. The garden of passion is the only garden in this world that will never, ever die. So the question to ask is, what's your garden looking like? You tell me. Do you have a genuine passion of some sort? Are you interested in anything? Because that's another thing. Forget about passion. When I ask people, are you passionate about anything? Maybe I do wrong asking that. Because a lot of the times, people don't know what their passion is. But then at the same time, if I talk about, if I ask someone, okay, tell me interests that you have. What are you interested in as of right now? They're basically telling me an insight into what may potentially be their passion. And it's a case up to them as to whether they actually grow and cultivate and water that seed, that interest, for it will then turn into passion. And it's not even guaranteed that it will turn into passion. It depends on how well they actually take care of it, to further experiences that they have, what their environment is like. Will it help to cultivate their passion? Does that make sense as well? Because sometimes you might plant, I don't know, a mango seed in the middle of Sheffield or the UK. Come on, a mango seed requires a lot of sun. So you need a certain environment to cultivate that passion. But in the world that we are living today, we can almost replicate certain environments using the internet, right? We can easily get influenced by the internet. Otherwise, without the internet, would I be influenced or would I be passionate about certain things that I am passionate about today? Probably not. Accessibility will be a lot less. You have a whole world to access. And I think that's really important to understand. Do not take internet for granted. We spend time scrolling on TikTok, Facebook, Instagram. Use it to discover a passion. Every time you find yourself just scrolling, looking at memes, or whatever you're looking at, take a moment for a second and ask yourself, let's use this time a little bit more productively. Let's find a passion. Just search up something. Look at your suggested. See what's suggested for you. Look up certain YouTubers. Look up certain, topics that you're interested in. Come on, use the internet productively. And so after that half an hour of you browsing there, you may end up finding something that you might take interest in. Now, here's another thing, important side note. Once you find your passion, once you find your passion, once you find your interest, try and get books on that interest. Ideally physical if you can. The reason why I say books is those authors who have written about that certain topic that you're interested in, they've spent years, likely, on that certain topic. They have years of knowledge condensed down into a couple of pages, 300, 200, 400 pages, however many. Now, that source of information you won't find on a 200-word page document blog of someone's, or a Wikipedia page or a YouTube video. No. Look at the book, because the book will also have further references as to where that author got this idea from, that idea from. And I think books, nowadays, they're kind of going down like this. No. Never ever leave your book. I've in the past 2.5 years, I've just started bringing up my passion and love for books. I've realized I've gained so much knowledge from books alone than the actual internet itself. So that's just one thing to just keep in your mind, that, books is where you should be going to, ideally, as a first line of action. Now, let's just quickly summarize. 1, you now know the difference between a passion and an interest. 2, you now know what and how, a passion is actually developed. You have experiences, you develop interests from those experiences, and then those interests bloom into passion. It might not be guaranteed. It might be guaranteed, who knows. But either way, you have a chance. You have a chance of developing further passion. As a result, your garden increases and your life will, as a result, feel so much more fulfilled. Now, let's talk about a couple of issues here. A lot of the times I hear people say, make your job, your career, your passion. I'm just sat there like, you don't have to. You do not have to make your career your passion. Because sometimes, right, passions should be a place where you should go for, real downtime, to take your mind away from things. And a career is also needed, a career that is demanding, requires you to work hard, requires you to think critically. Stress is needed. If you're not going to be stressed in life, how will you ever move forward? Now, to put it this way, right, you've got a boulder, or like a piece of rock that's just fallen off the cliff down into the riverbank, right? It's got so many cuts and sharp points on it. But then there are other rocks at the bottom which have been left there for 10, 15 years. They're a lot smoother. That's only because of the water that's come along and, made them more smooth, and that stress has turned them into this nice round stone. Now, the point to make is you need stress in your life. It sounds really weird. We, as humans, on social media, I see everyone running away from stress. You're stressed, take time out. Yeah, take time out, but why are we running away from stress? Deal with stress. That's what we need to do. Know how to deal with stress, but also understand how beneficial stress is. Like, if I think about it, if I wasn't stressed in, for exams and all that sort of stuff and school and certain aspects of my life, if I don't have that element of stress, will I ever move forward? Not in the pace or at the speed I want to. So that's just one thing to get clear. Stress is important. Now I'm just thinking back, where on earth did I leave this conversation? Like, why have I suddenly gone off a tangent? I haven't gone off a tangent, but hopefully whatever I've just said right now, it makes sense that, you need stress. You need stress to move forward. And let's just go back a couple of steps, right? I want to talk about experiences and opportunities that people and individuals get. You get an opportunity, right, to do something new, experience something new. Please, I'm begging you, do not say no. Say no later on if you really have to. But your initial response is yes, yes. Say it with me. Go on, repeat after me. Yes, I will. Yes, I will take up this opportunity. Yes, please. Yes, thank you. Whatever. Yes. YES. C. G. All of the, yeses in all other different languages. Yes, yes, yes. Don't say no to an opportunity, because keep this in mind now. You say no to an opportunity, you've probably said no to 5 potential passions that you could potentially add into your life, add into your garden. And let's just put it this way, that you've kind of decreased fulfillment in life by 1 to 2, 3%. Now, that is kind of a big loss if you think about it. And if you don't like something, you don't have to go and do it. Like, for as long as you end up getting the seeds in your hand, once the seeds are in your hand, the interests are in your hand, and you can actually see them, and you close your fist, then you can do whatever you want with them, right? But not until, well, like, what are you going to do with an empty hand? What flowers are you going to grow? You're not going to grow any. Not until you actually go out there and experience stuff, collect those seeds, get interest, get experience. That is so important. So, to quickly summarize once again, you know the difference between a passion and an interest. And passion, this overwhelming feeling and urge and love you have for something, you lose track of time, it's genuine, it comes from within. And an interest is almost like I like this. It's almost a toned down version of passion, just that love for it hasn't developed from within. It's a curiosity, that's the word. It's a curiosity that you have about something. You don't know whether you like it or not, and that influences come from your external environment, right? So with the example of the friend who influenced another friend about photography, I don't know, there was Forex trading and so on and so forth. But if I was to take away that friend, they will no longer be interested in it. That's the trap you've got to, look at and recognize, am I interested in it? Have I been easily influenced? Am I passionate about it? Those are the things that you want to think about. So you've understood that. You've then understood how, if you have an experience, that experience then can translate into an interest. Those interests, and consider this, right? Every experience will guarantee provide you more than one interest. 100%. If you put your mind to it, you can leave a situation with probably more than 3 different interests. That's a guaranteed. No experience is the same. And also keep this in mind, that if you experience the same thing twice, they're both going to be different. It may be on the surface, 2 different, like the same thing. Let's say, for example, I go out to sea for fishing. Seems like I'm doing the same thing over and over again. No, because I go the first time round, I'll catch a massive fish. Go second time round, I don't catch any fish, but I end up seeing whales. All of a sudden, 2 different interests pop up. But that's just an example, right? So you've understood that an experience translates into interests. Interests translate into passions. Passions, they grow and grow and grow, and depending on what you do with it and what your environment is like, whether you can actually go forth with that passion. But for as long as you develop that passion within, you've got no issue. And then the final thing, which I wanted to mention, is surround yourself. Surround yourself with different types of people. Actually think about, if you want to know, what you're like as a person or what you may potentially like, look at what your friends like. Look at what they're interested in. Obviously, you're there with them probably because you share similar interests. And if you share similar interests, you may potentially share similar or maybe even different passions, but there'll be almost a common ground. You'll kind of like work well together. So maybe have a look at that. And if you don't like the stuff that they're looking into, then fair enough. Find a different community of people. Obviously, don't leave them, but find a different community of people and look and search for that passion. Forget about passion. Search for interest. In fact, forget about interest. Search for experiences. Forget about everything. Just experience life. That's all I want to say to you. At the end of this podcast, I want you to take away, if there was one thing, it's probably not even passion, because passion will come automatically. It's actually not saying no to an experience. That's probably the biggest lesson from this entire thing. Don't say no to an experience. Say yes. And once you get that experience, you will easily find your interests. Easily. Just with an open mind. Go with an open mind. And then you may end up developing a passion. Once you develop your passion, then you've pretty much working your way towards getting a more fulfilled life. And when people speak to you, they will also get influenced as well. That is why I'm so passionate about passion, because it can, friend, it can literally change your life. Literally change your life, which is why I've started this podcast. And hopefully I want to bring people onto this podcast and talk about what they're truly passionate about. Because I really genuinely believe that once we get people on here, we can see how they actually developed that passion, where it all came from, and so on and so forth. And it can easily influence people. And I think the best people to learn from are people who are experienced, i.e., people who are passionate. Your passion, like we said, derives from experience, and you learn best from passionate people. That is a given, whether that be at university or whether that be outside, whether that be at work, wherever you are. You will learn best from passionate people. Get that in your head. And I've seen that myself, with different lecturers. One lecturer hates their subject. I know a lecturer who dislikes their subject, but still does it. Why? Because if anything, I'm not going to learn. It's going to be hard for you to teach. But then I met lecturers who are super passionate about their subject, to the point I ended up doing extra reading for that, that topic, that area. I would have never done that. But because you were simply passionate, it changed the way I looked at that topic, looked at that subject. So that's pretty much it. And until next time, I want you to go out there, say yes, and experience life.